It is technically good morning as I'm recording this. Logan, I'm looking at your paper too, and when I just opened it and I saw it was about production of weaponry, I was like, whoa, sounds so interesting. So yeah, let's get into it. I've chosen to write about the production of weaponry and engineering. There is large controversy about the production of weapons because these weapons can or will be used to harm others. Knowing that, are engineers being unethical by developing these weapons? That is the question. The field of engineering seems to be one of the most beneficial fields today. The design of new technology and architecture seems to be only beneficial in the world. Well, you had me up to there. It's only beneficial? I mean, new technology has also, say, created ways for people to be to have their money stolen because of online. What did I do? Because of new technology. It's allowed racists and other kinds of crazy people to band together. So, like, you gotta tinker with that a little bit. The only controversial topic in engineering that I could think of was the production of weaponry. My take on this issue is that weapons are generally a good device to manufacture and distribute to those who use them responsibly. Whether these weapons are used to supply our soldiers in war, to supply our citizens for protection and other activities, they are ultimately used for the good of our country. Okay, another place where I think if you just qualify your statement, that is, if you make it a little bit smaller, then I'll be good with it. I think most people would be good with it. So, whether they're used for our soldiers or for our citizens, they're ultimately for the good of our country. I mean, sometimes, but we've also had, like the bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City. We've had, in lots of other cases where people have used weapons not for the good of the country. So I feel like the way that you put it, whether these used for this or for that, it sounds to me like those are the only two ways that it can go, and that's definitely not the case. Okay, after researching this topic, I've found numerous articles debating about the list of citizens who should or should not be granted permission to purchase a firearm. Whoa, this is going in a totally different way than I expected. The first article, Keeping Guns Out of the Wrong Hands, discusses the federal gun control laws that attempt to decrease the danger of weapons by eliminating those who pose a threat from being able to obtain them. The different categories of those who pose threats were clearly stated when Jacob and Putter wrote, federal gun control law attempts to strike a balance between permitting law-abiding citizens to obtain firearms with relative ease and preventing certain categories of presumptively irresponsible people from purchasing and possessing firearms. Those that are conclusively presumed irresponsible include ex-felons, former mental patients, drug addicts, juveniles, and illegal aliens. Okay. Although this list of individuals contains some of the most dangerous people, it still hasn't changed the crime rate with weapons all that much. This article also included information about a lot of past mass shootings in the U.S., and oddly enough, this is a fascinating thing to me, sorry, stop everything. A lot of people right now are not including the in front of majority. They're just jumping in like you did to say majority of these. So honestly, I think that may turn into the common standard usage, but the only place I've seen it so far is just in student papers. So at this particular moment, I would say you need your the in front of there. The majority of these shootings are done by weapons that were purchased legally by the offender. Okay. So I'm just surprised that you went this direction because I really thought we were going to talk about if it's ethical to make them. But this paragraph is about what happens to them after they're made. So I don't really see how that connects. Although these weapons can be used for good, does it outweigh the negative effects? Engineers have a vast amount of ethical rules. One of the main rules is stated when Fred Smith wrote, engineering ideally should be used for the benefit of the masses by improving the quality and ease of their lives. The statement clearly shows that engineers need to find a balance between their profits and maintaining trust with the public. Well, it doesn't quite say that. It just says that's what they should do. It doesn't say anything about profits. Smith had also assessed the possible uses of these weapons when stating weapons can be designed in order to perpetrate physical injury or property destruction. It could also be a measure used to defend oneself as well as an equipment to be used in a sport. And equipment? I think you just mean as well as equipment. Although this tells us that there are ethically good and bad uses for these weapons, it is ethical for these workers to produce weapons that can potentially end lives and destroy properties. Okay. So what I'm feeling like maybe happened here is that you got interested in this subject and then you found some articles that really actually talked about kind of other stuff, which is fine, but that's making me think that maybe we need to change around your introduction so that it fits what you ended up talking about. Because after your intro, you kind of have two introduction paragraphs, and then you have this paragraph about federal gun laws, which don't have anything to do with engineers. And then you have this paragraph about the purpose of engineering and the purpose of weapons. I think that's what that paragraph's about. Let's see what else you got. The United States spends more than any other country on its military and weapons development. According to Willa, somebody, there is no legitimate reason for making these weapons of destruction. She states, well, what weapons? I'm going to need you to just say a little bit more about narrowing it down. I mean, we're talking about atomic bombs, or are we talking about machine guns, or like automatic weapons, or, okay, missiles. So why are we still making weapons for it? Sure, it's cutting edge research. It's fun to learn to make a plane fly faster and farther with better navigation and cooler technology, but is that justification enough? When your intentions go on to kill thousands of people, is it enough to say that you created a weapon because you thought it was cool? I like that quote. This article is very informative because it brought up that there is no current reason to create these weapons of mass destruction. Yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. You have your quote, and then you have restated the quote to kind of work it into your own discussion. Although the development of these weapons has allowed us to make huge technological advances, we could be making these discoveries while researching other issues. Okay, so I think what that means is, like, we could be researching, trying to clean water for people, and we might find this stuff. The United States definitely has insurance in our weapons to keep the country protected, and I do not think that branch of research needs as much push as it had needed in times of war. Okay. Although these weapons are potentially used for their own reasons, I don't believe it is unethical to produce them. Okay, so this paragraph was about it's unethical. I think what you're concluding in the paragraph that starts with the United States is that we don't need to do as much weapons development as we are currently doing. And then it seems like you're talking about, okay, now we're going to move to it's not unethical to produce them. Sorry, I'm definitely not doing my best work right now, as most of us aren't. A little bit of COVID brain. Okay, I mean, not that I have COVID, but Okay, so an article by Ethics Forge gave reasoning for both sides when stating, we believe that the gun industry's overwhelmingly negative impact outlined above outweighs any benefit to society's welfare. Outlined above. So either, when it says outlined above, suddenly I'm like, what in the world was outlined above? So either you can cut that out and just or use your own words to explain what was referenced above. It's totally reasonable to just cut it out. Excuse me. Because within that piece of writing, like that author of the Ethics Forge wants to mention something else in their own writing, but we don't have that, and you don't think that we need that, and I don't think we do either, but we'll just take it out then and go, we believe that the gun industry's overwhelmingly negative impact, ... outweighs any benefits to society's welfare. You really pick as a writer when you want to leave things out of someone else's writing, and then someone can come back and be like, well, you took 3 words out and put a ... and this means something totally different. But that's not what's happening here. I think you'll be fine cutting a little from there. The article highlighted only the negatives that come out of weapon manufacturing. Well, what are the negatives? The side arguing that weapon production is unethical is often influenced by the media. Weapon production is influenced by the media? Oh, okay, here we go. I'm like, what? You're going to talk about that. The media highlights the negative events that come from weapons and can often persuade others to have that mindset. On the other hand, weapons provide civilians with a sense of safety and protection from crime. As stated in the article, Venezuela banned private gun ownership in 2012 and have actually seen... Venezuela have seen? I think we might just have a typo there. Because it should be and has seen the homicide rate rise by 13% over the last 5 years. These weapons are actually saving many people's lives, and evidence supports it. Along with providing protection, it provides millions of citizens with recreation activities. Whether it be hunting or shooting for fun, it is for the good of the people. Okay. So I am just going to point out, though, one of the fallacies that we talked about was false analogy. So like saying this is like this when the two things aren't really comparable. And I'm afraid I would have to say that comparing the United States to Venezuela is not a real strong comparison. It's a really, really, really different country, really, really, really different history, really, really different amount of resources and power in the world. So I feel like you could come up with a better example than that. And I would also be aware of saying evidence supports it. Don't say evidence supports it. Give us some evidence. Like when we say a lot of people enjoy hunting and shooting for fun, put in a number of how many people enjoy hunting or shooting for fun. Then you'll have your evidence. You won't just say like, oh, there's evidence out there. Like, just trust me. Like, you don't need to do that. There is evidence. Despite there being unfortunate consequences with production of weapons, it should not be considered unethical for engineers working in that industry. The advantages that come with producing weapons outweigh the negatives. Whether it is the protection that it provides citizens, or police, or military force, or the recreational activities of jobs it provides, there is not a way to completely eliminate gun crimes. Okay. I'm going to look briefly at this. That looks okay. The page numbers look beautiful. Okay. So what you were actually writing about, and like this is no criticism to you because I do this all the time. You started out thinking you were going to write about one thing, and then you end up really writing about something else, which is fine. It just means you got to tinker with your introduction, I think. And excuse me, because your intro doesn't go with your conclusion. You said that you were going to talk about production of weapons, but what you ended up talking about was only really, I mean, I guess some of the stuff. Okay, it wasn't only this, but it was primarily guns. That other paragraph about just general weapons research, I was wondering, so is that like the atomic bomb? Is that like, right? I think you need some more examples. Either include some more examples of how what you're talking about plays out in areas of research other than guns, or just have it be the full focus on guns. I think either one of those would be good, and would straighten out the fact that what you're really arguing is that we should research, it's ethical for engineers to create guns and work on guns because the positives of guns outweigh the negatives. And that's a fine thing to argue. I'm sure you can find a lot of evidence for that, but you need to fix your introduction so that we kind of see where you're going, where you actually ended up.